Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well. I have a bit of an interesting week planned, so I figured I would studio vlog to bring you along for the journey. Actually, the plan for the next couple of days is to work on various Christmas ornaments and decorations. There's one thing in particular that has been on my to-do list since I got my first 3D printer, which was a couple of years ago now, and I have never made it, so hopefully that will happen this week. Actually, the main reason that it's never been printed was because it's a pretty in-depth print project. It's about a 26-hour print job for the two pieces, and I got my first 3D printer around this time a couple of years ago, and at that time this was just a beyond daunting sounding print job, and now it's like, that's nothing. And there's also a few things that my mom has requested me to 3D print for her to try out and see what they're like. I actually used to do crazy amounts of Christmas ornament tutorials, like just absolutely insane stuff. I'm pretty sure there is a video that I went through all of the crazy ornaments that I had made over the years on my channel, but it just used to be this like somewhat random thing that I was really into doing all of the time. Not that I'm not still into doing it, I did a couple last year as well. But just making really interesting and sort of crazy Christmas ornaments has always been something that I've been into, and so I have a couple of ideas that I want to sort of test out and see if I can do those as well this week. Hopefully this will be an interesting collection of projects for you to see me work on. The first thing I wanted to knock off of my to-do list was the thing that has taken me years to finally 3D print, this Star Wars tree topper. I will have the links to all of the models that I use and print in this video in the description if you are interested in printing your own. I did scale this one up a bit, but I still got it to fit on an Ender 3 bed, and I also really upped the print quality, so this thing I printed in gray PLA at 0.12 millimeters. So it did take a while, but there's so much detail in the ships that I wanted to achieve, so it was definitely worth the extra time because this thing looked awesome. So I got the two halves of the star printed. I had no desire to paint this thing, so it was just removing all of the support material and then assembling it. And I should probably mention that the entire reason that a Star Wars tree topper was so high on the to-do list is because I actually have an entire Star Wars Christmas tree. In fact, we've had to expand the Star Wars Christmas tree setup to 2, which posed an entirely new issue because obviously that was one tree topper, but I had to come up with something else. So I decided to get a little creative because at this point we basically got a light side and a dark side tree going on, and I concocted this little experiment. So this is of course an upside down Baby Yoda that is printing here. I modified the file that I wanted to use to have a hole in the bottom of his body so that it could actually be used as a tree topper and the top of the tree could, you know, go somewhere. And he got printed in gold silk per my mom's request, which looked absolutely incredible when printed. And this again was in multiple pieces with a decent amount of support material, so I went ahead and removed that first before then going ahead and assembling him. So here is Golden Green Bean, as I've nicknamed him. He isn't actually assembled yet, so his cup isn't actually glued into his hands and whatever, but he is fully printed and I have cleaned him up. I fixed his hand as best I could with my hot knife there. This gold silk filament seriously hides the layer lines, so he just looks incredibly pristine and just so cool. Yeah, very happy with how he turned out. He's not going to be going on a very tall tree, so him being this size is perfect for the size of the tree. The next thing was an entirely impulse project, but the second that I realized that I could make one, I just jumped at it and got it printing right away. But it is a tiny amethyst nest ornament. This also isn't fully assembled, like the visor isn't glued on clearly, and it also doesn't have any of the helmet blades actually attached to it. So we have the one type of helmet blade, and then you have the ear helmet blades, and then the pieces for the second back helmet blade on there as well. So this one does involve a lot more assembly and gluing, but I'm really happy with how this turned out. There's a lot of the detail that you can still make out on this, even though this is quite a small helmet. Obviously once the blades are on it, it's going to be like sticking out to here. But yeah, this might end up having to live in my studio permanently once the Christmas decorations are even put away, because I think it would make a fantastic addition to my Amethyst Nest shrine, which if you have never seen it, you know, definitely not an Amethyst Nest fan at all or anything. clearly. Yeah, I think I'm going to head and actually get these both all glued together. Now that all of the Star Wars stuff is out of the way, on to more of the random ornaments that I wanted and or my mom wanted me to test out printing. First one was this star. Now this is actually like one of those spinning star things to really test the tolerance of your printer. So printed that up. It turned out okay. There was definitely a point where I really should have added some support material and I just didn't pay attention to the model because normally with these you're, printing it flat and hoping for the best that, things print out loose enough that you can actually spin it once it's finished, which it did work out. It's just a little tight in some places, but overall that was pretty successful. And the second thing she wanted me to test out was this deer card ornament. A lot of people are making these types of models now where it's basically you're printing like a model kit that you snap the pieces apart and assemble it, which is really cool and fun, and this definitely worked out. I printed a little tight to the bed, so some of the tolerances for the pieces were a little snug, so I did have to shave those down a bit, but once I got that all together, it assembled really easily. The next ornament project was an idea that I wanted to try out, so I decided to actually 3D model something up because my concept is that last year I ended up actually pour painting some ornament discs, but I wanted to try it to see what would happen if it was like an internal pour. So I came up with this really simple flat circular ornament design that basically had a lip so that the paint actually stayed within the circle instead of sort of flowing over the edges and sort of making a catastrophe and a really big mess of the back, which is what happened the last time. And then of course I went ahead and got some of those printing. Today I have quite an interesting and unexpected day planned. So my aunt and uncle are coming down because my uncle is wanting to finish up some work in the workshop project, which is of course, it has somewhat been seen a little bit in videos, but it's obviously this massive ongoing project right now, and my uncle doesn't really need my aunt's help today. So part of that is she's still coming down, so my mom and I are trying to, I guess, keep her entertained, and part of that I figured, I was obviously printing the pour painting disc ornaments that I wanted to test out, and I figured I would print a few more and we would pour paint them together. This aunt is actually really into pour painting. She was one of the main people that really wanted to do it as sort of the family party idea that I did a couple of years ago now. I mean, definitely not this year. Yeah, she's actually then done it on her own since that sort of instructional party time that I sort of held for my entire family. I think she's going to really hopefully like this idea and enjoy doing it, and then of course you guys get to see someone else's work other than mine for once. But I guess the other part of that is I didn't want to all of a sudden have this new person here. I mean, she's really not going to be on camera because, you know, my family hasn't signed up for this YouTube lifestyle. But I obviously didn't want to have this like new person in a video without, I guess, sort of explaining the situation, because in no way did I want this to come off as, I guess, promoting the idea of gathering people together. But this aunt and uncle have become part of my literal 5-person circle of people that I have any amount of contact with. I feel like from these videos at different times that it has come up, I'm obviously extensively immunocompromised at being type 1 diabetic. Like literally my entire circle of people are in the vulnerable population, or as my uncle calls them, the endangered species group. But yeah, they've essentially had to become part of my really close circle from doing all of this work on the workshop in the basement, and, you know, safety precautions galore between all of us. So just wanted to put that out there because I really don't want this to come off as sort of like an endorsement to, you know, everything is fine here and, you know, paint parties are cool. But yeah, that's my more serious note disclaimer here that I just really wanted to put in this video. But anyway, back to the regular scheduled and far lighter painting programming. Here are the groups of ornaments. This stack's mine, this is my aunt's. They're completely dry now, so I'm actually going to be filling the remaining space of the disc in resin, and that will hopefully give it a really awesome and nice finished look. I feel like this next section of Studio Vlog needs a bit of background history. In the summer at some point I concocted this plan where it started out as I wanted to custom paint a sweatshirt for myself. I also wanted it to somewhat double up as a work shirt, or at least something that I wasn't going to be super paranoid about if I happened to get paint or something on it. The concept was to have these gradient galaxy sleeves so that any possible mess that I got into would get camouflaged pretty well, other than, galaxies are awesome. But then it came to the main body of the sweater. I considered just splattering it with paint because that would definitely camouflage any future mess, but then it dawned on me that something that looks kind of like paint splatter and would be a lot easier to do to cover the main body of the hoodie would be to tie-dye it. Now, at some point during this planning, my aunt caught wind that I was planning to tie-dye stuff and wanted to hop on the bandwagon as well. She actually wanted to make some custom hoodies as Christmas gifts for people, so finally, because I ended up being way too busy in the summer with store launches and stuff, Auntie Lee came back for another round of craft time to finally dye our sweatshirts. Now, we did take some time and do extensive research on YouTube to try and come up with the most foolproof method that we figured we could attempt to pull off, and overall we pretty much decided on the scrunching method, although I decided for my first one to try the ice dyeing method. This isn't going to be a tutorial, just wanted to mention exactly what we're doing here. We did pre-wet the sweatshirts beforehand so that they had a nice blooming effect with the colors. And the sweatshirt that I'm working on here is actually the one that I still wanted to do the galaxy sleeves on, so I decided to leave the sleeves outside of the main scrunching of the sweatshirt so that I could really see and make sure that I was getting those sleeves nice and dark because I still wanted to have that camouflaging effect. Yeah, I guess enjoy some nice time-lapse tie-dye footage. finished sweatshirts. This one is the one that I splattered the sleeves on, so the Galaxy Special, or I guess the Studio of MM Special you could call it. Yeah, I pretty much kept my color scheme across all of the shirts that I dyed the same, you know, I have a brand and I'm sticking to it. And yeah, I'm really happy with how they turned out. Obviously the tie-dye dye isn't extremely pigmented, so you can't really see the stars too much on the sleeves just because the dye itself underneath isn't that dark, so of course the white doesn't show up as well as it would on like a normal painting of mine. But overall I think it was a pretty successful test run for, you know, first time tie-dyers. I don't actually know if my aunt's ever done it either, and if she has, it's, you know, been years. So for two people that have like had zero experience tie-dyeing and just sort of jumping in, it went pretty great. So I of course will insert the different footage that I have of the finished products of mine as well as the ones that my aunt did. I'm sure you're going to be seeing at least the sleeves of these sweatshirts in various upcoming videos, since these were sort of my concept of like a work sweatshirt that I wasn't going to be paranoid if I got any like paint or whatever on it, which is how this entire concept came to be. Now, originally for this sort of holiday special video that I've got going on, I was going to possibly work on a Christmas card design, something that I've sort of had in the back of my mind in the books of wanting to do, but I just like, I can't, man. I'm just done for the year. The thought of like drawing something, I did actually try. I started sketching out my original concept, which of course was Mandalorian themed. You know, I have a bunch of nerdy friends. It was gonna work out very well and just, you know, be a cute card design. Started sketching that out, was not feeling it. Thought of an easier idea, started that, got like, I don't know if you'd say halfway, but you know, did get further along, and it's just like brick wall, I'm done. Cannot be bothered, so I think I'm just gonna leave that be for this year. I've been up to a lot the last few weeks, so giving myself a break and not worrying about a Christmas card design is not gonna kill anyone. Yeah, that's I think going to be where I end this studio vlog, and this actually might be my final video for the year, so thank you to everyone for sticking around for another year, or if you're someone that hopped on this crazy train this year, thanks for joining. And I think that's everything. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.